Hello, and welcome to Glory Be, interesting people and how they pray.
Each week, we chat with interesting people about their lives, their work, and how they pray. I'm Sharon Hanish.
And I'm Father Vince Fernandez, and we're joined by our producer, Mike Malcolm.
Our guest today is Archbishop Paul Coakley, Archbishop of Oklahoma City. Archbishop Coakley grew up in Louisiana and Kansas. He went to the University of Kansas and received a BA in English and Classical Antiquities. After completing university studies, he traveled in Europe and briefly considered a monastic vocation. Archbishop Coakley attended seminary at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland, where he received his Master of Divinity, and he holds an STL in Christian spirituality from the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. He was ordained to the priesthood in the Diocese of Wichita in 1983, ordained a bishop for the Salina Diocese in 2004, and installed as the Archbishop of Oklahoma City in 2011. He serves as an advisor on many boards, including Catholic Relief Services and the Augustine Institute. Welcome, Archbishop Coakley. We are so excited you agreed to be a guest today. You've been in Oklahoma City almost 10 years, and this past year has been a little tricky with the pandemic. How are things going in Oklahoma City right now?
Well, it has been a challenging year for everybody, but I think we are beginning to creep back toward normalcy. Everything is pretty well open again, of course, churches and businesses. And as we prepare for this 4th of July weekend, I think everybody's looking forward to some festive outdoor activities. And so things are going rather well.
Yes, isn't that nice? As we were reading your bio, we mentioned here that you were involved with the integrated humanities program at KU. Actually, my brother-in-law has that same degree, studied under John Sr., so I'm a little bit familiar with it. But can you tell us about that time? I know it was formative for a lot of people who went to KU. And we also have a lot of what do you say, rock chalk fans listening to our podcast. So talk to us about that, your time at KU, and how that maybe influenced your vocation story.
Sure. I went off to KU as a freshman and not quite sure what I was going to do. I was fortunate, providentially, to have been guided by some friends toward the integrated humanities program, and the high school buddy that I chose to room with in college decided that he was going to get involved with the same program. It was turned out to be a man who has become another bishop, Bishop Conley. We got involved with the integrated humanities program. It was a great books program spread over the course of four semesters, 2 years, introducing its students to great literature of the West, beginning with the Greeks and then the Latins and the Christian Middle Ages and then the modern period. It involved a lot of unconventional pedagogical ways of learning, including memorization of poetry and things of that sort. The motto of the program was a Latin term, expression nascantur in admiratione, let them be born in wonder. And it was really about awakening a sense of wonder, and with that, a love for learning, a love for the beautiful, the true, and the good, and opening our hearts to mystery. And of course, for many of the students during those years, this was back in the 1970s. For me, it led ultimately to a rediscovery of faith, and many conversions came through the program, many vocations ultimately, and I would attribute my own vocation in some measure, some significant measure, to my years with the Integrated Humanities program and the friendships formed through that.
Had you considered the priesthood before you were in that
program?
I
did not. I grew up in a Catholic family. My parents would ask me periodically, Paul, did you ever think about being a priest? And I would always change the subject because it wasn't on my radar screen at all. So there were no barriers from my family, but it wasn't something that I was interested in at all. That changed after college when I went to French Benedictine abbey called Foncambeau, where I spent about 8 months just living the life, and with a few friends from Kansas. And that's really where my openness to a vocation really blossomed, and the Lord touched my heart and in a powerful way. And the next year I found myself back in Kansas and applying for seminary. So it was the Lord did a pretty radical 180 in my life. So it was a powerful time of grace.
Why do you think with integrated humanities, how did that lead to so many conversions? Because in one sense, it is kind of a classical education, right, in terms of the Greeks and poetry, things like that, but somehow it led to people falling in love with Catholicism, right? And, bishops and I think some of the monks at Clear Creek Monastery here in Tulsa are products of integrated humanity. So what is that connection there?
Well, I think it was discovering within us, each of us as students in our different way, a love for, as I said, the beautiful, the true, and the good. I think it was through poetry and literature that my heart and mind was opened. But there were other elements as well that were part of the pedagogy. We did a spring waltz. We were introduced to rather traditional kinds of learning and things that had been part of our Western culture for centuries and centuries, but which we had lost sight of. I think part of that was how faith and a Christian Catholic worldview had undergirded all of that developing Western civilization, and falling in love with the outward manifestations of civilization led to the searching about what was beneath all of this. And that was really, I think, what led many of us to discover the beauty of faith and the teachings of the church and the expression of the church's life and such things as the liturgy, sacred art, music. It was really, I think, through the immersion in the monastic rhythm at Foncambeau and the Gregorian chant in particular that really solidified my own kind of conversion. And for me, it was a reversion to the faith. I was raised Catholic, went to Mass every Sunday. That was a given. But it was never very deeply personal for me until I really encountered the Lord in a powerful way while at Foncambeau.
Do you get to visit Clear Creek Monastery very often?
Not as often as I would like. I've been there numerous times. In fact, I've had the ordinations for them a couple of times there. My sister lives nearby, actually, in Tahlequah. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful place and a great gift to have here in Oklahoma.
Are any of those people that you were involved with at Clear Creek, or are they all in France?
Actually, no, there were a number of Americans like myself who had gone to Foncambeau and discerned monastic vocations and entered Foncambeau or one or the other of its foundations in Europe. But when the abbot decided that the Lord wanted a foundation in the United States, he gathered up all of the Americans who were there, and they became part of the founding fathers and brothers at Clear Creek. So I think of the 12 or 13 original founders at Clear Creek, 8 of them, I believe, had some Kansas connection through KU. Yeah, I knew all of the founding monks who came from France in 1999 when Clear Creek was established. We were all contemporaries at the University of Kansas.
Okay, well, now you're in Oklahoma City, so you have to be like a Boomer Sooner fan, right? So...
Yes, I'm learning. I'm learning to cheer Boomer Sooner, and I have to support our local Cowboys too. So
that's right.
You know, we have as many of our students in public schools at OU as at OSU. OU is closer, just down the highway, but anyway, it's good to be in Oklahoma.
That's right. You're an archbishop. That was a question I had for you. So because I was thinking when I asked the question, well, you're in Oklahoma City, you're closer to OU, you must be a Sooner fan. But really, tell us, what is an archbishop? What is the difference between an archbishop and a bishop?
Well, an archbishop is the diocesan bishop generally. A metropolitan archbishop, that is a diocesan bishop over the metropolitan see of a province. Every parish is part of a diocese, but every diocese is part of a province. A bishop is the oversees a diocese, but the principal diocese of a province is the archdiocese, and its bishop is the archbishop. So I'm a diocesan bishop, just like Bishop Conderla. Our province, however, consists of Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, the Diocese of Tulsa, but also the Diocese of Little Rock. So the three dioceses together comprise our province. And we each govern and our own dioceses with full responsibility for the church in that locality. But together we have our province meeting, an annual province meeting coming up later this month in July. And we come together around some common interests and concerns, and we work together and collaborate together. So it's just part of the way that the church is structured. Parishes, dioceses, archdioceses.
Okay. You know, one thing I want to ask before we transition to talking to you about prayer, Blessed Stanley Rother is sort of, you know,
he's a big deal.
He's a big deal.
He is. He's a very big deal. Yeah, we're honored
can you
to have an Oklahoma martyr.
I know. It's really a big deal. Can you tell us about what's going on with him, what Oklahoma City is doing? You're building a shrine?
We are building a shrine, and I should probably provide a bit of a context. I came from Kansas, but my seminary, I went to Mount St. Mary Seminary in Maryland, which is also the seminary that Stanley Rother went to. I discovered Stanley Rother in the summer of 1981 at the time of his death, because I was a student at the Mount that time. And when Father Rother was killed in Guatemala, word went out through the seminary network that a distinguished alumnus had died in Guatemala. And so I was intrigued and fascinated by his life and inspired by his example from the years that I was a seminarian. And so when I came here to Oklahoma, I knew that Archbishop Beltran had initiated a cause for his beatification. And so I knew that was going to be part of my responsibility as the new Archbishop when Archbishop Beltran retired. So ever since hitting the ground here, I've been following the cause of Blessed Stanley Rother. In fact, before my installation, I came down here in a clandestine mission, even before my appointment had been announced, to go and make a little personal pilgrimage to Okarche and to pray at the tomb of Stanley Rother and to ask his intercession. So I'm very, very interested in him. He's a great inspiration, and he has been for me all of my years as a seminarian and priest, and now as a bishop. So I was privileged to be the archbishop at the time when the cause for his beatification was presented in Rome, and to have been present for his beatification here in Oklahoma City. So we're building a shrine to honor him, which is going to be on the south side of Oklahoma City. It will be a large church. It'll be the largest Catholic church in Oklahoma, seating about 2,000 people, right off of I-35. It'll be very visible from I-35. And it's well underway now, its construction. It will be a church that will serve as a pilgrim destination, pilgrimage place, for those coming to learn about and to seek the intercession of Blessed Stanley Rother. It will be a place where we will have large diocesan events because it'll be the largest church we have. So for rites of election, things of that sort, it will not become the cathedral. but it's also in a part of the city that serves a large Hispanic population. And since he gave his life ministering in Guatemala, we anticipate that it will also be a church that many Spanish-speaking Catholics will make as their own. It will be a church for everyone, and we'll have masses in both English and Spanish there. But it's going to be many things, but it's well underway, and hopefully it'll be the place where someday, God willing, Saint Stanley Rother will be honored as well.
Right. When is there a completion date on the shrine? Or
his feast day is July 28th. So we're planning that next year, July 28th, 2022, we will be ready for the solemn dedication of the Shrine Church, where he will be buried. He will be interred in the church. So,
that's great. I can't wait to visit.
We can't wait to have you visit.
Yes, so one of my responsibilities here at the parish is taking bus trips for our Encore, our 55-plus community, so we'll definitely put that on the list. That's awesome.
Put it on the list, yeah.
Well, we are called Glory Be, Interesting People and How They Pray, and it's about that time to move to chatting with you about your prayer life. So you mentioned that you considered a monastic Benedictine vocation, that you were influenced at KU by the Classical Antiquities program. How do you pray today? So talk to me about when you get up in the morning, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, good question. Prayer has always been, from the time especially the time that I discovered my vocation while in France, prayer has been a very important part of my daily life. As a seminarian and priest, the liturgical form of prayer, known as the Liturgy of the Hours, has been a very important kind of framework for my prayer, and along with the daily celebration of Mass. So my personal prayer life, generally, I begin each morning, try to get up about the same time each day, and structure my life really around a rhythm of prayer. And if we don't make time for prayer, it's not going to happen. It has to be a priority for me. And so I begin my day. I'm fortunate as a bishop. I have a little chapel in my house where the Blessed Sacrament is reserved. So I will rise early and shower and get some coffee and make my way to the chapel. And I begin by praying for the Liturgy of the Hours, morning prayer, and then the Office of Readings. And then I will sit quietly and pray with the readings, liturgical readings of the Mass for that day, and spend a considerable time of quiet, just meditating upon the Scripture readings and the prayers of the Liturgy of the Hours. So that's how my day begins. That's always been very important for me to have that structured time of prayer early, because once I leave home and leave my chapel and come over to the pastoral center or get out on the road and head out to parishes or whatever the day might hold, it's kind of unpredictable. And so that's why, for me, prayer has to be an intentional act, and it has to be structured. Sometimes other things happen, life intervenes and interferes, but to have those important times of in which my prayer is structured around a rhythm. And of course, that's kind of the springboard for prayer. Pray the rosary. I try to pray the rosary each day. And sometimes I'll pray, a lot of long drives across the plains of Oklahoma. I'll sometimes, frequently, if I'm in the car for any length of time, I'll pray the rosary while I'm driving. So it's a variety of different ways of praying, but simply just being with the Lord, listening for his still small voice in the events of the day and the encounters that I'm having with people, just trying to discern what is the Lord saying to me through these events, through these happenings. was influenced in my formation, my years seminary, and I did a advanced degree after ordination in Christian spirituality, and that was very much influenced by the Ignatian tradition. So the rules for discernment of spirits that St. Ignatius has given to the Church, and his 8-day silent retreat. I tried to make an 8-day retreat with some regularity, made a couple of 30-day retreats as well. So I'm very comfortable in silence. So that's a part of the way I pray as well. So the liturgy is the foundation. It's the prayer of the Church. But I season that certainly with significant amounts of personal prayer during the day, particularly beginning in the morning and ending in the night prayer, Compline in my chapel once again before turning the lights out at the close of the day.
So you mentioned you've done 2 30-day retreats.
I have. Yeah.
Tell me, where did you do those, and how was that?
Well, the first time I did a 30-day retreat, I was studying at the Gregorian University in Rome, which is a Jesuit university, and doing Christian spirituality there, which was mostly Ignatian spirituality. And learning about Ignatian spirituality, I realized, if this is going to really take flesh for me, I need to experience it. And the 30-day retreat is where St. Ignatius really teaches the person making the retreat to pray. And so between the 2 years of the program, during the summer, I went to England from Rome and made my first 30-day retreat in a place called Loyola Hall, somewhere between Liverpool and Manchester. And it was truly a life-changing, life-altering experience. I mean, that was really, Foncombeau was what got me on the track, but I think the 30-day retreat, the first one especially in England, was really what solidified, I think, my whole personal spirituality and in many ways, my vocation as a parish priest. And then years later, maybe at least 13 years later, I think it was, I was director of spiritual formation at Mount St. Mary Seminary, my own seminary. I was an alumnus at Blessed Stanley Seminary. I had been appointed director of spiritual formation there. And so before I began that new apostolate ministry, I felt the need to re-immerse myself in the Ignatian exercises. And so I went to Wernersville, Pennsylvania, to a Jesuit retreat house there to do the exercises once again. That was in 1999, I believe. So yeah, those were 2 kind of pivotal experiences spiritually for me as well.
That's great. Archbishop, was there any time in your life when it was difficult to pray, or to do that, to get up early was not easy?
Yeah, I think rather frequently. This morning was very difficult to pray because I couldn't wake up. I was nodding off. So yeah, that's just part of a life of prayer. That's why I think it's important to have a discipline about it and a structure about it, because it's not always easy to pray. But I think it's just important to be there and to persevere through it. So, difficulties arise in anybody's prayer life. There's going to be seasons of dryness and as well as seasons of plenty and times of consolation, but also times where we experience desolation in prayer, dryness in prayer. So I've certainly had my experiences and seasons of both rather regularly, but it's just life with the Lord. And sometimes, who was it, St. Teresa of Avila, a great teacher, doctor of the Church, master of prayer, experienced a lot of dryness and difficulty in her prayer and hardships in her life. And she said, Lord, if this is the way you treat all of your friends, it's no wonder you have so few of them. So sometimes, prayer is difficult. It's not. Sometimes it's wonderful, refreshing, joyful, consolate, but not always. And I think people understand that when they really take seriously the adventure of prayer, that they'll be able to persevere.
Right.
And to have somebody accompany you, a spiritual guide, a companion, a spiritual director is another great aid in prayer.
So do archbishops have spiritual directors?
Yeah, I hope so. I've had a spiritual director throughout really ever since seminary. And sometimes it ebbs and flows, and the time to move on and find a new director might be necessary. But it's kind of come back to that as an important discipline and practice.
Now, as an archbishop, could you be a spiritual director, or you just really are too busy for that?
Well, I've spent a lot of years. When I went back to my own diocese in Wichita after studying in Rome, and after serving as spiritual director at the seminary in Maryland, I was serving in a retreat house in Wichita and did a lot of spiritual direction during those years. Honestly, since becoming a bishop, I have not done it on a regular basis, just because of the demands, I suppose, of my ministry as bishop.
Yes.
But it's something that I've always found very life-giving and helpful for me personally, but a way that I felt called to share the gifts that I've been given and help others along their own spiritual journey.
Now, Father Vince also graduated from the Gregorian, and he has some kind of spiritual. Is your degree the same?
So I got my STV at the Greg, and then I got my STL at the Ange in spirituality, spiritual theology. So, yeah.
At the Greg?
At the Angelicum, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got tired of the Italian, so
I know. Actually, I started off at the Angelicum because they had an English faculty.
Right.
And I did a semester there, but I really felt drawn to do the Ignatian route, so I transferred to the Greg, and by then my Italian was a little bit better.
Okay.
So,
yeah. I double dip. I went to the Greg for a few classes just to get some Ignatian spirituality in there. So I got best of both worlds a little bit. So.
Yeah, I did too, I think. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Archbishop. It's been great to have you as a guest, and for you to make the time to talk to us has been a blessing. One question we ask all our guests is, if there was one prayer intention you could tell the whole world to pray for, what would that intention be and why?
Well, honestly, I think right now, where we find ourselves right now, I would ask the world to pray for healing and reconciliation. I think we are such a divided, polarized, suffering world and church right now. I think what we really need is healing and reconciliation. There's so much division and rancor and mistrust. So that would be my prayer intention that I would invite people to pray for.
I love that. Well, we do praying for healing for our world and our church. Well, we know you're very busy, and we sure appreciate you taking time out to be on our podcast. So we ask all of our guests also to lead us in a Glory Be in order to close out our podcast.
I would be honored to. Let us pray. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Glory Be is a production of the Office of Communications at the Church of St. Mary in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm your producer, Mike Malcolm. See you next time.